And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Monday morning, IFR here over the Bering Sea. Good VFR along the southwest coast and off to the west. So Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, another VFR day, at least to start Monday. IFR along portions of the Arctic coast. Interior, all VFR. And some IFR here right along the North Gulf Coast and into the Gulf of Alaska. And some low clouds burn off to afternoon sunshine here for the southeast coast with marginal VFR lingering along the coastline and possible marginal VFR due to some incoming moisture here coming into Cook Inlet and the Susitna, maybe the Manuska Valley, Copper River Basin. The remainder of the interior stays VFR. And some lower conditions now trying to edge in toward the southwest coast, but the northern Bering Sea looking really good. IFR along the Arctic coast and pushing south into the North Slope. No change over the central and southern Bering Sea or the Aleutians. And no change into Tuesday morning out in this area as well with a lot of IFR there. Still Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, VFR. Eastward here across the interior, marginal for the North Slope, IFR for the Arctic coast. And big area of IFR here. Gulf of Alaska pushes in toward the north coast of the Panhandle and trying to get into southern Prince William Sound down toward Sitkinak Island. Marginal VFR on the inside waters. That stays through the day with marginal VFR now for the entire southeast coast for the day Tuesday. IFR still along the north coast there too near Yakutat. Marginal VFR into Prince William Sound and portions of Cook Inlet and around Kodiak Island. The interior, good VFR now from the Arctic coast all the way down in toward Bristol Bay, and still a lot of IFR over the Bering Sea. And for passes for the Brooks Range tomorrow, and the Tuvakanatigan should see another mostly VFR day for both passes there, as well as Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy VFR. Windy VFR, as well as Isabel and Mentasta, looking good. Tanita VFR trending toward marginal throughout the afternoon hours. And for Portage, marginal VFR, it looks like the entire day. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here with upper level ridging through the interior. So we got 12,000 feet in the same location there. 10,000 feet along the Arctic coast and the North Gulf Coast areas. And for icing, with some moisture coming westward here across the Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast area, could see some isolated moderate rime icing here in this area, starting to push in toward Cook Inlet and across the Kenai Peninsula, and could see some considerable moderate rime icing along the far eastern Beaufort Sea coastline. The only other area that might see a chance of significant icing would be out here over the west central Aleutians. And the jet stream here, big area low pressure out over the southwest Bering Sea. Westerlies 75 knots there, 75 to 95 knots on the south side of that system, and then east-southeast 70 knots on the north side. And westerlies 75 knots coming into the western North Slope, and southeast winds 70 to 85 knots. Here turn east-northeast at 75 knots. Right along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula. 9,000 feet here, narrow band of 30-knot winds or 20 to 30-knot winds here coming across the Copper River Basin out of the northeast, now helping pull that moisture westward that's caught up in that flow. Otherwise, westerlies 30 to 40 knots coming across the North Slope. Pretty light over the Panhandle. And the big swirl out here over the Bering Sea has 35 to 45-knot winds blowing around that center. And at 3,000 feet here, much less impressive on the wind field of that low over the Bering Sea. West-southwest 25 knots here, eastern Aleutians. But a band here of anywhere from 20 knots around the Alaska Peninsula to 30 knots southwest of Nunivak Island there, and taking off even stronger toward the Russian coast. 20 to 25 knot west winds. Narrow band of west winds there for the eastern Arctic coast, pretty light over the remainder of the interior. So looking at turbulence, smooth through the Panhandle, much interior Alaska, maybe some isolated moderate turbulence for the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline. And also here, kind of a narrow or a swath of possible turbulence from the Alaska Peninsula up to St. Matthew Island.